Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this celebration. Would those of you on the left care to move a little bit to the, those of you over there move a little bit to the left here. So, all right, we're gathered today to celebrate the demise of a threat to our Crystal River. To celebrate the slaying of a dragon, to celebrate the abandonment of certain claims to our water. We're also here to hope and pray for a continuation of the conditions that we now enjoy. But to put this day in perspective, we've got to look back. We've got to look back 60 years to a day when a dusty blue Pontiac sedan came rolling into Redstone. In this sedan were three guys from Rifle, Colorado. They pulled in here. They parked right over here at the general store. It was a nice day. They bought bottles of Coca-Cola, and they came over here and stood on the bank of the Crystal River, right here. And they watched this river roll by, and they thought, we could make some use of that. We could control this river. We could exert dominion over its water. We could dam it up. So they went back to Rifle. and they embellished their idea. They developed a plan for dams. Now, one of those dams was just going to be less than a mile downstream from here, and it was going to back up. It was going to create a Rudeye-sized reservoir, if you can believe that. We would have been 100 feet underwater right here. Water would have been halfway up the walls of the castle. Water would have been backed up from here almost to Placida. And then at Placida, they had planned for another dam that would have backed water all the way up to Darien's Bridge. Oh, lost in history, but they were Rifle guys.
I bet you I know them and their forebears.
Okay. But these guys from Rifle, they weren't dreaming of creating nice mountain lakes, lakes where you'd have water skiers going by in bikinis, lakes where you'd have guys on the bank trying to outsmart small fish. No, that wasn't their goal. They were thinking of this in terms of temporary storage units. They were thinking reservoirs that would be drained in the late summer and remain lifeless mudflats until the following spring. The Placida wetlands and Bogan Flats, they weren't going to be grazing lands for deer and elk and moose. Those animals don't eat mud. Their fantasy was to use this water to grow alfalfa hay and to stimulate industry. But those hay fields and that industry, they weren't going to be in this valley, no. They were going to take that water and pump it over these mountains and use it to grow hay south of Rifle. They were going to use it to to cool retorts for oil shale at Parachute. We were all opposed to these dams, everybody. Ranchers, fishermen, carpenters, environmentalists, it didn't matter who you were, but everybody in this valley was opposed to those dams. And beginning in the 1970s, there was some effort to protest the building of those dams. By this time, the guys from Rifle, they called themselves the West Divide Water Conservancy District, and they called their plan the West Divide Project. And people from here would go to their board of directors meetings and tell them how damaging to our valley these dams were going to be. But were these people heard? No. They were brushed off like bothersome bugs. These directors did not have to listen. They were not elected. They were appointed. And they were appointed by a district judge, and he was elected. He was appointed, rather. So here you had these guys. They could tax us. They could take our money. They could use that money to develop their plan to take our water. And we couldn't vote for them. This was our sad condition. This was our lamentable plight until a couple of years ago, when a guy persuaded the Pitkin County Commissioners to take some action, which has resulted in this great situation we're in today. And in a moment, I will introduce the fellow who did that. Before getting to that, though, we've got to thank the sponsors of this event. And I understand Chuck has already done that with one exception. He forgot to thank the Roaring Fork Conservancy, and he forgot to thank Sharon Clark. And these people... And these people were sponsors of this event. But most of all, I think we should applaud Chuck Downey, who went to the very considerable effort of putting this all together. Now I introduce the man who, more than any other person, is responsible for the demise of the West Divide Project in the Crystal Valley. Without further ado, I present the Pitkin County Attorney, John Ely.
This is how serious people take the Crystal River Valley now. When you come here, you write down what you want to say so you don't mess it up. Before, nobody would do that, I don't think. And there should be a table here, don't you think, Dorothea? Well, first of all, let me correct Bill on a couple of things. I didn't really have to talk anybody into doing anything on this whole effort. The Board of County Commissioners was behind this unanimously from the start, and I brought it up to them. It was more than a year before the latest diligence application was filed to preserve the water rights that Bill was eloquently describing. The county's Healthy Rivers and Streams Advisory Board was also 100% behind the effort. And most gratifyingly, and in no small exaggeration at all, SEVEPA and the Crystal Valley Caucus were behind the effort. And from what I could tell, they were behind the effort completely and 100% as well. And I was talking with Ken Newbecker just a minute ago. It's that grassroots effort that really makes the difference. I think people have a tendency to look up all the time, the county, the state, the feds, somebody. But it's the local effort that really makes a difference when it's all said and done. So the West Divide Project, it was even worse than Bill described, because in the 1950s, the federal government was looking for a way to manage the Colorado River system in a little bit better way than they thought was occurring. And the legislation that the federal government passed was called CRISP, the Colorado River Supply Project Act, and it included this thing. It included this thing because they cast such a wide net. They were looking for anything that might work, and so they picked it up. And at that instance, that's when the two districts filed their water rights, and that's why their water rights are dated at about that time. And that's when there started hanging this sword over the valley here as to whether or not something was going to happen. Maybe back in the early 1900s, when the whole idea was first conceived, maybe it made a little bit of sense to take a portion of the water out of the valley, but certainly not since the 1950s. It simply didn't make any sense at all. It would have been robbing this valley of its very lifeblood. I mean, no kidding. The river is that. And to export that water out of the valley over into western Garfield County would have changed everything. So, when I started thinking about the diligence application coming up for this project, I thought that I would have to do some convincing, and I was so happy that I didn't have to do that at all. And I was so intensely pleased that there were groups of people that were out in front of me already that had been thinking about this for years, that were ready to go after this project and to lend a vocal support to the effort. So in May of 2011, the diligence application was filed. I'd already received the permission from the Board of County Commissioners to file our opposition. In advance of that, I'd been talking to several other groups. SEVEPA, of course, and the Crystal River Valley Caucus were just chomping at the bit to get involved and to lend their voice to this effort. The problem was they didn't have a lawyer. So, you know, we talked Bill Yoakams out of retirement. It wasn't a real tough, dialogue. He didn't put up much of a fight. He reactivated his license and agreed to represent the two nonprofits. I'd also been talking with American Rivers representatives, and through them met their local officer, I guess. I'm not sure how you describe you, Matt, but you are the Colorado person for American Rivers. And although litigation and a potentially nasty fight is not really what American Rivers is all about, Matt was certainly willing to step up and to lead his organization into a fight. The dilemma was they're not geared up for litigation, so what the county did is we backfilled for them and provide them the legal assistance so that they could participate. Drew Patternell over at Trout Unlimited, and you guys see Trout Unlimited folks around here every spring. They were well aware of this project as well, just because of their presence up here every year doing their statewide conference, which also surprised me. And Drew was willing to do that as well, although he didn't have as much resources to commit either. So the county again backfilled a little bit, and as a consequence, we had a nice cadre of 5 entities to fight this project. The districts were staffed up with 3 different lawyers, and so I thought that I wanted to make as much of this fight as I could. So along with our water council and myself, we hired a litigation firm to take this up, and found ourselves at a nice 5 attorneys versus 3, and I thought the odds were improving for us a bit. And as it was a little bit interesting for me, because one of the districts, the Colorado River District, the owner of this project, is a entity on which I serve, and which was a good thing, though. Over the years, I'd got to know the folks down at the River District quite a bit, and I had a sense that their heart really might not be in it, at least the heart of their engineer and the heart of their lawyer. But they were still of the old school. You never walk away from a water right. You don't walk away from anything. If a dam, you never leave that behind. And I guess what was motivating me particularly was the idea that even though the 2 districts didn't have the funds to build this project. And even though the federal government had manifest its intent not to fund the project could be sold. It could be sold to any number of entities that could build it. It could be sold to Front Range entities that, with storage located in this valley, even though the water stored here would never be exported, say, to the Front Range, it would change the administration of the entire Colorado River, and thereby allowing other things to take place. Or entities in energy development. They could build the project, and things could change dramatically from there. So I guess that was the precipitating event where I thought that expending county resources and trying to get as many people involved as possible was a good idea. I think the tipping point for the districts came at a point where they realized we just weren't going to go away. Our hydrologists could demonstrate there was no need currently for the project at all. As Bill described the project, it would have been almost too rudized. We could demonstrate only a present need for about 17 acre feet. 17 acre feet. You can find 17 acre feet in the old trout pond just up the road. Our experts demonstrated the cost of this project to be well in excess of $30 million in today's money, let alone what it might be inflated to building out into the future. And we had an economist on board who was testifying at his deposition that the project would never make a dime. The districts were putting out justifications for the project that it would generate hydropower. Well, the dollars never added up. It just never would generate hydropower. That it would help stream flow, and that was never in the cards. That it would help agricultural irrigation, and that was never going to be possible from the way this project lined out. In fact, if the project were to go forward, it would begin a long period of time of the districts losing money, hand over fist, forever, for as long as they pursued it, let alone the local resistance, let alone that they could not find one voice in the entire Crystal River Valley to support their project. Every time they tried to get themselves into the public face. At one point in time, I remember there was an attempt to sort of defeat our little coalition, if you would, and they invited Bill and Dorothy and Dee down to their offices, and I wasn't there. And ordinarily, it would be an event that a lawyer would, pound the table, and we'd be running down there, and we'd be in the face of the person who tried to get somebody else in the room without their representation. But in that particular instance, I just didn't have any reason to be worried whatsoever. And I know that they came away from that meeting scratching their heads wondering, what is wrong with these people? Don't they get it? We're trying to help them. And I think at the end of the day, they just didn't get it. They never got it. They still don't get it. They still don't understand why we sent them away. But in the face of being more prepared for trial than they were, in the face of potentially losing the other half of their project that Bill didn't refer to. The other half was over in Garfield County, and we were attacking both halves. So in the face of losing the entirety of their project, in the face of knowing that they would have to fight this fight year in, year out, forever, in the face of knowing that we were ready to go and we were better prepared than they were, that's when they came. And that's when this entire project became abandoned. It became abandoned with one exception, a few CFS that were attributed to the Avalanche Creek diversion, which we allowed them to continue to use, but they can't use it anywhere in Pitkin County. Therefore, the water that they want to use has to flow right out of here. It is permanently locked as a default in-stream flow, if you will, all the way down to the Roaring Fork, because there's no use for it in Garfield County portion of the Crystal River drainage. So we just had all kinds of fun. The challenges are always there, though, and you always have to keep your nose to the wind, because this river is still here. And as long as the river is here, it will always attract attention. Somebody will always be looking at it as a solution to a problem. Even now, the Front Range Water Users Association are thinking this is the time for one more Trans Mountain diversion, right now. This is the time to do it. This is the time to realign the administration of the Colorado River. Any storage helps that effort, anything. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day up Thompson Divide or further down. Any number of things could change what we enjoy right here. So we always have to remain diligent and trust in the local organizations to mouth off enough to get the job done, which is exactly what happened here. So thanks a lot to Dee and to Chuck, and to Bill, and to Dorothea, to John, and to about 100 other people that are right here. You guys really put together a great effort. Thanks. Before I get unplugged.
Tough acts to follow there for sure, but I'm so happy to be here right now. Haven't been at work for 2 weeks, and this is a great way to kind of transition back in. And this is why I do what I do. Is it's amazing to have the opportunity to work with a community that cares so deeply about their river. It's so important, and it's been quite a year and a half, and it's having conversations with Bill and John over the last year and a half about how this case was going to play out. We certainly got the best of it, and it's because of everybody here. It's because of the army behind the Crystal River and John Ely. Watching him do his thing was amazing. He held the line till the very end, until they just realized we're not going to win now. We're not going to win in 6 years. We're not going to win in 12 years. Let's just call it. So it's amazing. This is an amazing celebration, and John alluded to it before he left. But this project is dead. It doesn't mean that the next project's going to be dead. This is a free-flowing river. This is one of the last and longest free-flowing rivers in Colorado. So because of that, it's always going to have a crosshairs on it. So the next step really is to think seriously. And I think the community has been thinking about it for years. And I feel like there's some really, really good momentum right now to get this river protected. So our kids and our grandkids get to look at the same river. There's nothing that stops some other developer from following a right to build a dam. We don't know what the politics or the economy is going to be like in 25 years, so it's the time to protect is now, and it's just something to think about. American Rivers, where we were founded in 1973, actually in Colorado, to take advantage of a fairly new law at that time called the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. It's a law that was designed and passed to protect in response to the last kind of dam building age in America, a law that was designed to preserve the last free-flowing rivers, rivers that are important to communities like Redstone and Marble and Carbondale. This is the poster child for the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, and I think a really good candidate. So with that, there's a lot of folks talking about it. Folks like Dorothea and Bill would answer any of your questions. I'm happy to answer any of your questions as well about what that would mean and what it's going to take to get there. But the bottom line is it has amazing benefits, not only for the community, for the river, reflects this community's values, this state's values, is a really incredibly useful tool for other activities that may impact the river in the basin. And that's it. Thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to be involved in this.
Before you put that down, tell them you're going to give a talk at 7 o'clock in the Oscar.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to be talking.